I demanded my stepson move out of his room so my daughter could move in. After he hated me all this time for cheating with his father, he sulked and refused, claiming I can't replace him. So, I threw his stuff out of the room, changed the locks, and told him to deal with it. Now, I'm regretting my actions. My own daughter hates me, and my husband left me. I've never posted on Reddit before. My daughter actually recommended I try this because, according to her, people here are blunt and not afraid to say what they think. So, here goes. I'm Sandra. I have a 15-year-old daughter and an 18-year-old stepson, who I'll call Caleb. Caleb and I have known each other for around 5 years. My husband and I got together when our kids were about 10 and 13. And while things have been fine on the surface, Caleb and I never really clicked. I always tried. I was never pushy, just present. I offered to help with school projects, cooked family meals, and tried inviting him out when we did stuff, but he kept his distance. That was fine. I respected that he probably had mixed feelings about his dad moving on. But 5 years later and he still avoids both me and my daughter like we're strangers in a shop. To be fair, I've never asked him to call me mom or anything. But he barely talks to me unless it's something basic like dinner being ready. With my daughter, he's even more distant. He acts like she's a random lodger in the house. Never rude, just upset. We've all lived in the same house for years, and I couldn't tell you one thing Caleb knows about her. They've never fought. They just exist separately. You could fit the conversations they've had over the years in a single paragraph. Now, some background about the house. Caleb has been living in the attic since before I came into the picture. It's not some dusty storage space. It's a full-on converted loft his parents had redone when he was about 9 or 10. It's genuinely the best bedroom in the house. When I moved in, I was told straight up that the attic was Caleb's space, and I respected that. It was always understood he valued his privacy. Caleb still lives with us even though he's now at university. He commutes from home since it's cheaper and he's studying fashion. He's got mannequins and fabrics all around and he's done a decent job turning the attic into part studio, part bedroom. I've complimented his work a few times. He's genuinely talented. But again, he barely responds when I try to engage. Now to the issue. My daughter has recently asked to stay with me full-time. She usually splits her time between me and her dad, but things have soured between them over the last year. Long story short, her dad's emotionally inconsistent, doesn't really know how to deal with a teenage girl, and they've had multiple arguments, nothing abusive, just the usual cold shoulder parenting that made her feel unwelcome. I didn't push her to move in full-time, but when she asked, I said yes immediately. My ex didn't fight it. He was like, whatever she wants. So now she's bringing most of her things here. And this is where the problem starts. Her bedroom in our house is the smaller downstairs one. Perfectly fine for a kid who's here part-time, but she's not part-time anymore. She has way more stuff than Caleb. Clothes, books, school materials, instruments, you name it. She's also very creative and into art and music. And her current room barely has room for her keyboard, let alone an art desk. It's cramped, especially when you consider she's now going to be here 24/7 studying, relaxing, and living her full life. And look, I'm aware it's awkward to shuffle people around, especially when they're already 18 and set in their ways, but in terms of practicality, it just makes sense. Caleb is gone most days at uni. He doesn't engage with the rest of us. My daughter is here full-time and actually contributes to the household, helps cook, cleans up after herself, and talks to people like a human being. The attic space is being used, yes, but mostly for Caleb to haul up and isolate himself from everyone else. So, I spoke to my husband about swapping the bedrooms. I suggested that maybe Caleb could move into my daughter's room and she could have the attic space. I didn't go into it aggressively. I explained the logic. She needs more room. She's living here full-time and the attic room is objectively the better space. I offered to pay for everything to redecorate the downstairs bedroom to Caleb's taste. Paint, wallpaper, furniture, even soundproofing it if he wanted more privacy. I also said we could clear out the dining room so he has a quiet workspace for his fashion stuff. We barely use that room anyway. My husband wasn't thrilled at first. He knows how Caleb is and didn't want to cause drama, but he admitted it made sense practically. He also knows my daughter's situation with her dad and agreed she should be comfortable in her new permanent home. So, while he was hesitant, he didn't shoot it down. When we finally brought it up to Caleb, he acted like we just told him to pack his bags and live in a shed. He didn't yell, he rarely does, but the look on his face was pure resentment. He said he needs the attic room to work on his uni stuff. I reminded him we were offering the dining room as a workspace and that we'd make the smaller room comfortable for him. He just said it won't be the same and shut the conversation down. Later, Caleb's girlfriend came over and confronted me about it, told me I was being unfair and selfish and that Caleb needs that room. That's when it clicked. Of course, she's not a fan of him losing the attic. That's where they get to be alone, unsupervised, with no parents walking past the door. The attic has one entrance, and no one else ever goes up there. In the smaller room, It's right by the kitchen and living room. I honestly think that's her main issue. She didn't say it outright, but the tone said enough. As expected, Caleb's mom chimed in as soon as she heard. She and I have never really seen eye to eye. She thinks I'm trying to replace her just by being married to her ex and existing in her son's house. She called my husband and accused me of forcing Caleb out of his own home. Dramatic considering I'm not evicting him, just moving him into a different bedroom and offering to accommodate all his needs. Even my husband, who originally hesitated, is now starting to see Caleb's reaction as over the top. He told Caleb that he should at least consider it since the room will help his sister actually feel at home. But Caleb's doubling down. So now it's basically 3 against 1: Caleb, his girlfriend, and his mom all pushing back. They're acting like I'm tearing the house apart when in reality nothing's even changed yet. No one's packed a box. No one's moved anything. All I did was ask. I brought it up again a few days later, trying to be as neutral as possible. I told Caleb directly, "This isn't about kicking you out. This is about what's fair given the changes." He cut me off and said, "It's not fair to take away something I've had for nearly a decade just because she suddenly wants to live here." I reminded him that his something is a room in a shared house, not a deed to private property. We're simply shifting rooms around based on who actually needs what space now. He didn't respond, just walked out of the room and didn't speak to me for 2 days. What really set me off though was when I overheard him complaining to his girlfriend, saying things like, "She's just trying to force her daughter into my space. She's always wanted me out of the way." That's straight up false. I've done everything to make Caleb feel included, even when he barely acknowledges my existence. I've made his favorite meals, let him have his space, never overstepped with him or his mom, and never interfered with his schedule, even when it made the rest of the household inconvenient. Let's not pretend this is some huge family bond being disrupted. Caleb keeps his bedroom door shut 95% of the time. He doesn't speak to me unless absolutely necessary. He treats my daughter like she's invisible. But now that his setup is slightly threatened, he wants to act like this house is suddenly his emotional sanctuary. There's also some history here. Last year, we had to store some extra furniture temporarily. I asked if we could place a few items in the unused corner of his attic room just for a week. He refused. He said it was his creative space and any disruption would kill his process. We ended up having to pay for storage elsewhere. I let it go, but it stuck with me. He's done similar things, refusing to eat at the table when we have extended family over, saying it makes him uncomfortable, not helping with basic household tasks, never joining us for dinner even when invited, and he's always positioned like he's the one being wronged when asked to bend even slightly. Meanwhile, my daughter's been quiet about it all. She hasn't pressured me or demanded anything. She just asked once, and when I said I'd look into it, she left it at that. She's the one who's actually adjusting, moving out of her other home, dealing with her dad barely checking in, starting a new school term, and yet she's been patient. She said if it's too much drama, she can make do in the small room. But why should she have to? We're not talking about shifting suitcases here. She's giving up her other room entirely. She's trusting this house to be her new full-time home. And while I'd never admit this to Caleb directly, yes, I care more about my daughter being comfortable in this home than I do about Caleb keeping the same setup he's had since he was 9. I told my husband I'm moving forward with it. He didn't fight me on it. He said, "If you're sure it's the right call, I'll back you." He also admitted that Caleb needs to start adapting to change like an adult. Being 18 and at uni means he can't expect his life to stay frozen exactly how he wants it. My husband's not thrilled, but he gets it. The final straw came when Caleb's mom called again, this time almost shouting. She told me I was punishing Caleb because he's not my child. That's when I lost it. I told her flat out, if this were about biology, I wouldn't have spent the last 5 years trying to make this kid feel welcome while he pretended I didn't exist. She hung up on me. So, now we're in limbo. My daughter's stuff is partially moved in. The attic room hasn't been touched yet. Caleb's sulking, refusing to engage. His girlfriend has been giving me dirty looks every time she's around. His mom won't speak to me. Only texts my husband things like, "This is what happens when you let her run the house." But I'm done waiting. My daughter is moving into the attic room by the end of the week. I've already bought the paint and started clearing out her current bedroom. I told Caleb this morning to start packing up anything in the attic that he doesn't want touched because we'll be moving her things up by Saturday. He didn't respond, just nodded and shut his door. Business as usual. I've done what I can to be accommodating. I offered to pay for new furniture, new decor, and even extra workspace. I tried handling this through conversations, but at the end of the day, this is a shared house, not Caleb's private studio. It's not a punishment. It's a rebalancing of the household to reflect who actually lives here full-time and who contributes to the family dynamic. And honestly, Caleb can be upset. He's allowed, but being upset doesn't make me wrong. This isn't personal. This is practical. and I'm not going to feel guilty just because his mom and girlfriend want to act like he's being victimized. I haven't changed my mind. I'm not backing down. My daughter needs space and stability more than Caleb needs to keep pretending the rest of us don't exist. So, Reddit 80AA edit. I wanted to clarify a few things since people are throwing around some wild accusations and assumptions. I'll address them straight. First off, to the people asking about Caleb paying rent, he doesn't. He gives us $100 per month in dig money. That was his idea, not ours. He said he wanted to contribute and help his dad out when he started uni. We didn't ask or pressure him. That money doesn't even cover a quarter of his expenses here, but we appreciated the gesture. And before anyone accuses us of singling him out, we plan to have my daughter pay dig money as well once she's old enough and working. It's not about Caleb specifically. It's just about learning some responsibility once her past a certain age. Now to the bigger elephant in the room. Yes, Caleb's dad and I did start seeing each other while he was still married. It wasn't planned. His ex-wife was going through a rough patch. We were both in bad places emotionally. I just divorced Carly's dad and we made a mistake one night while drunk. It shouldn't have happened. Neither of us expected it to become anything long-term. But it did. That's the truth. I regret how it started, but not the life we've built since. I also regret the comment I made about Caleb's mom needing to get her SHT together. That was written in frustration and stress, and it came out meaner than I intended. I won't pretend I like her, but that was low, and I own that. As for the accusations of me being biphobic or homophobic, that's complete nonsense. My brother is gay. One of my closest friends is bisexual. I couldn't care less who someone dates or sleeps with as long as everyone involved is safe and consenting. That said, here's what I did say, and I stand by it. I don't want my daughter thinking it's normal to bring home a different person every month. Caleb's relationships so far have barely made it past the 2-month mark. When he's not with someone, he's still active and no, not at our house, thankfully. But I don't want Carly looking at that and thinking it's fine. She's 15 and easily influenced, and that kind of behavior carries risks. Caleb isn't my son. He's made that more than clear. But I have looked out for him. I've bought him condoms in the past to make sure he was being safe. I'm not shaming him. I'm protecting my daughter. That's my job. Comments. Comment 1. Uda. You're not just asking Caleb to move bedrooms. You're stripping him of the only personal space he's had since childhood. That attic wasn't some fluke. It was designed for him. He's used it as his bedroom, studio, workspace, and safe zone. And now, suddenly, because your daughter is moving in full-time, he's supposed to just shift downstairs and pretend it's no big deal. You keep calling it a practical decision, but it's painfully obvious you're playing favorites. Your daughter is 15. She just moved in full-time. She's not entitled to the biggest room just because she has more things. That's not how shared living works. Caleb is older. He's in uni and he's established in that space. You say she has too much stuff. Then you make storage work for her, not the other way around. You even admit you're not close with Caleb's SHT like this is probably why. And the fact that he pays dig money, however small, and still gets treated like a temporary inconvenience. Uda 100 times over. Comment 2 Uda, and this is honestly infuriating. Caleb's room is more than just 4 walls. It's his workspace, his privacy, and his comfort zone. You said yourself it's filled with dress forms and uni materials. This isn't a kid lounging in a gaming den. He's using that space productively. And yeah, he pays you $100 monthly. You're not doing him a massive favor letting him stay. You're getting paid and trying to evict him from his own damn room. The logic doesn't even hold. You say Carly has more stuff, so she gets the bigger room. But then you say Caleb can just move his stuff to the dining room or cupboard. Why can't Carly do the same if space is the only issue? She's the one adjusting to a new arrangement, not Caleb. This whole thing screams favoritism. And don't get me started on that passive-aggressive "he's not my son" comment. If he'd said that in front of me, I'd have walked out. He's been in your house for 5 years. That room is the one thing he can still control. Take it away and all you're doing is reminding him that in your eyes he's disposable. Comment 3. You fumbled this entire situation the moment you tried to parent someone who made it very clear they don't see you as a parental figure. You're not his stepmom in his eyes. You're the woman who came in after his life detonated. That's it. And instead of leaving that dynamic alone, you kept poking at it. Why doesn't he talk to us? Why won't he include us? Because from his point of view, you caused the fracture. You were the adult. You should have understood that. Instead, you tried to rebalance the house in your daughter's favor. And don't bullshit us with this is just about space. You wanted to symbolically place your child in the best room because deep down you wanted that room to reflect your new family structure. The attic is the crown jewel and you are reassigning the crown. Also, don't bring up condoms like that makes you progressive. That just felt like a weird flex to soften the judgment. You can't frame yourself as SX positive and then turn around and shame him for having short relationships. You want control over Caleb's space and his relationships, and now you're pouting because Reddit didn't agree. Nah, this whole thing was never about rooms. It was about pecking order, and he saw it coming from a mile away. Update. So, a lot has happened, and since so many people had strong opinions last time, I figure I may as well finish the story. About a week after the original argument, things were still tense but relatively quiet. My husband and I were having a late-night conversation in the kitchen. Nothing loud, but the house isn't exactly soundproof. I was venting again about how unfair it felt that I was being made out to be the arsehole when all I'd done was try to make space for my daughter. I may have said something along the lines of Carly deserves a home that actually accommodates her needs, and I'm not letting Caleb hold this house hostage forever. What I didn't realize was that Carly was awake and heard the whole thing. The next morning, she came downstairs with her bag packed. She told me she was going back to her dad's place. She didn't want to be the reason the house was falling apart. She said it was obvious that Caleb hated her and that she didn't want to live somewhere she wasn't wanted. She wasn't crying. She looked numb. I panicked. I told her no, that wasn't what I meant. That she is wanted. That the whole reason I was doing this was for her. She didn't argue. She just sat down and asked, "Is this really about me, or is it about getting back at Caleb and his mom?" I didn't know how to answer that, because the truth is, maybe it wasn't just about her. Maybe part of me wanted to tip the balance, to reassert something in this house that always felt lopsided. I begged her to stay. Not my finest moment. I told her we'd forget the attic situation altogether, that she could keep her room, and that I'd help her organize it better. She said she'd think about it. Later that day, Carly and Caleb ended up in the same room. Not planned. They've avoided each other for years. But this time, Carly snapped. She asked him straight up why he hated her so much. Caleb didn't yell. But what came out was pure, unfiltered resentment. He said he never hated her. He hated what she represented. That her moving in full-time felt like the final confirmation that he'd been replaced. That she got the attention, the open communication, and the "I love yous" that he never got after his parents split. That everyone just expected him to go along with it while pretending none of it bothered him. Carly just said, "I didn't choose any of this either," and walked off. Later that night, Caleb sat down with his dad. I wasn't there, but my husband told me the conversation was rough. Caleb finally opened up, told him how he'd felt like a guest in his own home since we moved in. That he kept his distance not out of rudeness, but because every time he walked into a room, it felt like walking into someone else's family. He told his dad he felt like he had to earn his place in the house, and that even when he tried by offering dig money, staying out of the way, it still wasn't enough. That conversation hit my husband hard. He told me that night he wasn't going to keep defending me if I couldn't see how much damage I'd already done. Said Caleb wasn't being dramatic. He was just finally cracking after years of bottling everything up. He told me I needed to apologize properly, or else I was going to lose the entire household's respect. Before I could even figure out what to say, Caleb's girlfriend went nuclear. She posted a long rant on her Instagram story, tagging Caleb, calling me controlling and petty, and hinting that I was trying to erase Caleb's identity and stability to push my picture-perfect family. So, yeah, that was a new low. Now, we're in a situation where my daughter is still here, but she's emotionally distant. She comes home from school, goes to her room, and doesn't talk much. She didn't move back to her dad's, but it feels like she's holding everything at arm's length. Caleb barely acknowledges me. My husband's civil, but I can tell he's disappointed. And honestly, I don't even know where I stand anymore. I thought I was doing the right thing, prioritizing space for the kid who was actually around. I thought I was being fair, but it's clear now that I didn't read the room or the history correctly. So, no, the attic is off the table. The whole idea is dead. I told both kids we're leaving everything as is and finding other solutions. Carly has the smaller room. We added shelves and cleared out the coat closet for extra storage. I'm paying for a fold-out desk for her art projects. It's not perfect, but she's not asking for much anymore. She's quiet now. She said, "I don't want to take anything from anyone." That broke me a little. I don't know if things will go back to normal or if this is the new normal. The resentment, the distance, the tension. I'm living with the fallout of a decision I thought was practical. But it turns out space isn't just about square footage. It's about trust, and I might have burnt too much of it to fix. That's all. Comments. Comment 1. You know what the saddest part of all this is, Carly? The poor girl just wanted to feel wanted in one home. You fought for her to have space, but you didn't protect her from the emotional fallout. She heard you venting and immediately blamed herself. That should tell you everything. Kids are wired to assume responsibility for adult dysfunction. Now she's shutting down. And it's not because of Caleb. It's because of you. You were so focused on winning ground in a house still divided by old wounds that you didn't realize you dragged her into a war she didn't enlist in. And Caleb, you should have seen this breakdown coming from a mile off. I don't care if he's distant. He's been living in a house built on emotional eggshells for years. You replaced his mom and then expected warmth like it was owed. Doesn't work that way. You wanted to play house with your daughter and the problem is you tried to do it in someone else's. Comment 2. UF add this all the way up. I don't care how logical it seemed to you, Caleb's attic room was the last thing in that house that was actually his, not yours, not your daughter's, his. And instead of respecting that, you tried to dislodge him to make things more fair for someone who just moved in full time. You basically handed him a reminder that he's never been more than a guest in his own home. Then you dragged your daughter into it without protecting her. You weaponized her presence whether you meant to or not. Now she's caught in the middle of a 5-year Cold War between you and Caleb that she had nothing to do with. You say you begged her to stay like it was noble. It wasn't. It was damage control and she knows it. Your husband tried to warn you. Caleb tried to avoid it. Carly tried to be neutral and you lit the match. Why Tia then and why Tia now? Comment 3. This is the most painfully realistic example of what happens when someone tries to force blended family unity without actually healing the original fractures first. Caleb never got closure. You came into his life during a trauma and expected him to just adjust. That attic wasn't just a room. It was a barrier between him and everything that changed without his consent. But here's what's wild to me. You thought he was the unstable one. Meanwhile, he's quietly contributing rent, doing uni, keeping to himself, and not picking fights. Your daughter moves in and suddenly the entire household's emotional balance implodes. Not because of her, but because you made her the catalyst. You made her represent something bigger than just a kid needing more space. She became the symbol of my family now, and it hurt everyone. I don't think you're a bad person, but you played a bad hand badly. And now you're looking at the pile of broken trust, wondering why everyone's so cold. Update. I knew posting here again would probably bring more heat, but I think I need to say what happened because the situation has gone so far off the rails that I'm not sure how to get back from it. After the last update, nothing at home felt settled. The house was silent most of the time. Carly kept mostly to herself, barely speaking unless spoken to. My husband was civil but distant. Caleb avoided everyone. It was like living in a waiting room before a disaster, not a family home. And after everything that had happened, the arguments, the social media nonsense, the emotional fallout, I still felt backed into a corner. I know people think I'm controlling. Maybe I am. But living in that tension every day made me feel like something had to give. So, I made a choice. A bad one according to most people, but it's the one I made. A week ago, while Caleb was at uni all day, I moved his things, all of them. I went up to the attic, took every box, mankeen, fabric roll, sketchbook, shelf, everything, and shifted it into the downstairs room. I had already bought a lock for the attic door. I installed it myself. I changed the handle, so the only key was in my pocket. I told myself it wasn't malicious. I told myself Caleb wasn't going to budge and the house couldn't stay in limbo forever. I told myself Carly needed stability and that I was giving it to her. At the time, it felt like the only option left. When Caleb came home that night, he didn't shout. He just stood in the hallway staring at the locked attic door like his brain couldn't process what he was seeing. Then he saw the mess of boxes and mannequins stacked outside the smaller room and it clicked. He asked me, "Did you actually do this while I was gone?" Very calm. Too calm. I said, "Yes." And I said it as noodly as possible because I knew if I tried justifying it, he'd explode. He didn't explode. He just walked out the front door without another word. He didn't come home that night. My husband came home an hour later and saw the lock. He didn't yell either. He just looked at me like I was a stranger. Not angry, just defeated. He said, "You've made this 10 times worse," and left again to go look for Caleb. He found him at his mom's. Which leads into the next problem, the harassment. The moment the ex-wife found out, my phone lit up like a slot machine. She called nonstop, screaming down the line, saying I was unhinged, dangerous, and unstable, and that I violated her child's security. I hung up. She called my husband. She called my ex-husband. She even called Carly's phone. Then Caleb's girlfriend jumped in. She posted another set of stories, this time naming me full name. She claimed I barred Caleb from his own home, stole his room, and locked him out like a dog. Her friends started messaging me things like, "You psycho freak and get help." Someone even DM'd Carly and told her that living with me must be terrifying. That part nearly broke her. She cried for the first time since this whole thing blew up. As if all that wasn't enough, Caleb made a decision of his own. He applied for emergency student accommodation at his uni. They accepted him. He's moving out fully in 2 weeks. He's transferring his dig money to cover the first deposit. My husband said he tried talking him out of it, but Caleb told him flatly, "I don't feel safe in that house anymore." Hearing that gutted me. The same night he announced he was moving out. My husband told me he needed space. He packed a bag and went to stay with his brother. He wasn't cruel about it. He just said, "We can't keep pretending this is fine." Carly saw him leave and asked me if he was coming back. I said I didn't know. She went straight to her room and shut the door. I tried apologizing to Caleb. I wrote a message explaining why I did what I did, that I overreacted and that I wanted the house to feel stable again, not hostile. He didn't respond for a full day. Then he sent one message back. "You've had 5 years to act like you wanted me here. I'm done trying." That was it. Now the house feels wrong. Silent. Not tense. Empty. Like everyone's already halfway out the door except Carly. And even she's pulling away in ways I can feel but can't stop. Her teachers emailed me yesterday saying she's withdrawn and not turning in work. They're concerned. I don't even know how to help her because everything I do seems to make things worse. My husband texted me this morning saying we all need therapy. Not as a family individually. He said he'll come home in a couple days, but only if I agree to counseling. He also said I need to fix things with Carly before I lose her too. I know everyone here will say the same thing they've said from the start. I caused this. I escalated things. I forced the room issue. I didn't listen. Maybe they're right, but right now, all I can see is a house full of damage. Some done years ago. Some I caused myself and some that was waiting to happen no matter what. And I honestly don't know what the next step is. Comments. Comment 1. You really thought moving his SHT behind his back and changing the locks was going to bring normal back? What planet are you on? That wasn't setting boundaries. That was a calculated power move. You waited until Caleb was gone and then literally shut the door on him. It doesn't matter what your intention was. The message was loud and clear. I'm done pretending you matter here. Of course, his mom lost it. Of course, his girlfriend dragged you. You can't drop a nuke like that and then be surprised when everyone runs for cover or shoots back. You didn't just burn bridges. You bulldozed the whole effing village. Now Carly's emotionally checked out. Your husband's out the door and Caleb's cutting you off. That's not a blended family falling apart. That's one person detonating the whole thing to feel in control. Good luck fixing it. Seriously, you're going to need it. Comment 2. This is what happens when people try to build a family on top of wreckage. They never bothered to clean up. You cheated with his dad. That wasn't ancient history. It shaped every effing thing that followed. You married into trauma and then got mad that the kid wasn't affectionate. Then you spent 5 years resenting him for not buying into your family vision. He didn't owe you closeness after you helped blow his family apart. And the worst part, you used your daughter to justify the final act of control. She didn't ask you to move his things behind his back. She didn't ask you to change locks. You weaponized her needs to force something you couldn't get with honesty. Now you've got no trust left, no credibility and no idea how to fix it. That room was never just a room. It was the only thing he had left and you took it. Comment 3. You keep tiptoeing around the cheating like it was just a bad night that spiraled into a relationship. But for Caleb, that night probably marks the exact moment his home started crumbling. And now years later, the same woman who helped wreck that home just took a crowbar to the one private space he had left. You don't get to separate those two things. He doesn't. Every decision you've made probably feels like another step in erasing what little family he had left. And here's the irony. Carly's suffering now too. She's living the fallout of decisions you made. And she's smart enough to see it. She wanted to be close to you. But now she's watching you alienate everyone and probably wondering how long until she ends up on the wrong side of that door too. Second story. My entitled mom demanded I scam my dad for money and give it to her so she could buy a gift for my autistic brother when in reality she wanted to buy drugs, so I refused and she ruined my relationship with my brother and told him he isn't important to me. I lost it. Now she is in jail and I couldn't give a SHT. I 17F have been trying to save up money for when I move out in a month to share an apartment with my boyfriend. I'm going to go to university and my dad's offered help, but I know when I'm not in control of my own money, knowing when or how I'm getting it. I get really anxious about spending and whatever because I used to have really bad spending habits. My little brother, 15M, is autistic. It isn't a severe case where he's nonverbal or can't change or do anything for himself. At best, you'd think he's a little dorky. My mother is known to not be the best about spending her money despite having government assistance, and my dad constantly giving her money to fix her other money mistakes that she made with his money. I'm not so sure what's going on with all that. I think I'll get stressed if I ask my dad to explain it to me. All this is sort of just context for the situation. I'm also not mad at my brother as he stuck up for me before anyone asks about that. Basically, my mom reached out to me while I was sleeping over at my boyfriend's and asked where I would be working. Really out of the blue. She started asking how much money I'd be making and how often I'd be home once I moved out. I kind of caught on that she was asking for money. I tried to gently remind her that I'm saving up to pay rent in a little bit and start paying for my own things without an allowance. Then she asked if I could ask my dad to send me an allowance and just lie and say I'm not working. I flat out said no and laughed. She sort of huffed and said she struggles with buying presents for my little brother. His birthday was last week and the things that autistic people like are really expensive. I told her that was the stupidest thing I've ever heard. I said not everything revolves around his disability. I was trying to say he is his own person. He isn't a person with autism. He is Ryan fake name, which is what I was going to say, but I thought she wouldn't really understand that she zones out when I try to explain things for too long. So, it came out weird. She hung up. And 5 minutes later, my brother called me and asked if I was mad at him. I said no and asked what was wrong because sometimes he just asks me that. So, I wasn't fully assuming it was the phone call. He said my mother had told him that I said he wasn't important enough to have my money. He kept insisting he doesn't want my money. He likes me being his sister without that. This made me furious. Not at him. I explained what happened and he said it was weird and he's sorry. He doesn't want present money from me. We talked for a little bit and it was fine. When we hung up, I called my mother back. She tried to go off at me again, but I just yelled that it was so horrible for her to say that to my little brother. And honestly, I just kept yelling. Anytime she tried to talk, I just yelled, which is what I feel bad about because then she got upset and called my dad. My dad called me to ask if I was okay, but I was still mad. So then I told him she was asking me to lie to get extra money and he's also mad at her now. She's been texting me saying her whole house is mad at her now and saying she's sad she couldn't rely on me. She asked me to stay at my boyfriend's house for a couple of nights because she wanted space and my boyfriend said it was fine. I'm really conflicted now because I thought I was in the right for how I felt. But now seeing how much it affected her, I just feel like a huge asshole. My brother is telling me he still thinks it was weird and mean of her to try to get money out of me under the excuse of him being autistic. I and my dad are very close, but he hates to argue with my mom. So, we haven't really talked since my mom asked for space. I know my mom struggles with money and it makes her feel incompetent at times as she's expressed to me. These reactions are sort of making me doubt my behavior. I know I'm at the very least a bit of an RC hole for raising my voice, but yeah. Ada, sorry this is so long. Edit, just to clarify, my parents are not divorced, split up, etc., and they still live together. Comments. Comment 1. NTA. I don't see a problem in a parent asking their kid for money, but the manipulation and the lie to your brother were terrible. Also, she wanted you to lie to your father to give her the money. Why can't she ask him directly? OP. I think she didn't want to ask him because she gave him several debts he had to pay off that were very stressful for him and he sort of put restrictions on money she can borrow. Comment 2. NTA. Your mom's the A if possible go live with your dad. I wish your brother would go live with his dad. Get a therapist to help you heal and get better coping skills. If possible, I wouldn't move in with your boyfriend. You have so much healing to do that I don't think a live relationship would be healthy for you. OP. Unfortunately, my parents still live together. I wish my little brother could live with my dad as well. They argue a lot and my brother overall just hates living there but obviously doesn't really have a choice. Comment 3. What's the plan for your brother once he's an adult? Will your mom ever let him have any independence or does she see him as disability money? OP. I'm not sure. He's still a bit away from moving out. I'm assuming she'd want him to stay for a while. But he's expressed the idea to me of how much he'd love having his own space. EAP replied to a big comment. Thank you so much for this comment. Also, yes, he gave her a major limit because she'd given him debts. I don't know how to explain, but basically, she spent his money into oblivion. He would give her 2.5k to 5k monthly for extra spending money and things for my brother, but her extra spending money is now 300, and he just personally gets things for my brother if he needs them. I think I'll ask my dad to meet up and talk about the things she said to my brother along with my concerns for other things. I think that addresses most questions advice in this comment and my brother will be getting that fist bump. Comment 4. Oh, does your mother have a history of addiction? But absolutely ain't regardless. She is way out of line. OP. She had been in rehab once before my brother was born. But when my father told me this, he said it wasn't for very long. EAP replied to a big comment. She was working then quit. I do not know why, but it does not sound like she was let go. So then my dad was the main income person and eventually got a promotion. And when I was 12, he bought the place he was working at and one of its other franchises. I hope that makes sense because I really don't know anything about all his business stuff. Lol. But then basically, she had been saving her work money while she had a job, but took it out for one nice day out. Then eventually all the money she had was gone. And that was when she started asking my dad for money for important things. Then using it on random SHT she really didn't need or things that weren't essential. Also, a lot of people have brought up addiction. I guess I should have brought up she's been in rehab once before my brother was born, but it was so long ago that I didn't even consider this a possibility. I hope that's enough info. Thank you so much for this comment. Comment 5 info. Does she hoard? OP, I'd say no. From what I can see, the things she spends her money on are either single-use things or things she sees on the internet that her friends have that she throws out 2 weeks later because she doesn't like the items anymore. I guess the only things she keeps are like makeup and clothes that she buys with the money, but I wouldn't say at all that it's hoarding. Update. I firstly want to say thanks for all the advice you gave me and kind words. A lot has happened. Sorry if this gets really confusing or seems half-assed. I've just lived through so much that little details are lost on me. Trust me, there's heaps. So, for the comments from those who had said it seemed like my mother had an addiction, you weren't wrong. Mom got arrested the other night for driving under the influence. Turns out my aunt had been sending her hundreds to near thousands a month for what she thought was special needs equipment, but was actually for, I bet you can't guess, ketamine. Boo. Audience sound effect here. After the fight about the money, nearly her whole side of the family was against me, and I still wasn't allowed back home. This made her and Dad fight heaps because he wanted me home. But my mom was just literally refusing and was saying she'd call the police if I showed up. Then she got arrested. My dad called me and said I can come home for my boyfriends. I asked if Mom had calmed down and he was like, no, she's been doing ketamine in this house every night and just got in the car. RF Ada. So, she's not here. Which means you're here. Get your ass over here. And that was it. To be fair, everyone in my house has just sort of embraced it. I don't know how to explain it. I didn't expect her to be doing drugs. Like, I was surprised, but not stunned. I don't know how to explain. She and my dad are finally splitting up. My brother is handling this all right, I guess. I mean, better than most. I think his response was mostly just, oh, and listening to what we said about the things happening next. How Mom wasn't going to be around much anymore at all, etc. She's tried texting and calling a few times, but I texted her one time, a big paragraph, basically just letting her know I'm done. I maybe would have been able to forgive her if she didn't drag my dad down with him and spend every dime along his bloodline and have drugs in the house where my brother was. I don't care to know if she's like going to jail or something. Even if she gets clean and has a come to Jesus moment or some SHT, I really don't care to know her. I think that sums everything up. Sorry it's short. Maybe melodramatic. Not for me, obviously. But again, thank you for all the advice. Have a good day. Reddit comments. Comment 1. Has any of your mom's family apologized? Oh, my aunt. But I just told her I don't accept the apology and I'm not talking to her either. Everyone else is either standing on what they said or my dad is saying they're too embarrassed to reach out. But I just think they really don't care. Comment 2. NTA. Your mom has been scamming everyone for money for your brother's disability that you don't even mention in your post. Your aunt is the one being scammed by your mom for money to pay her drug dealer for ketamine. Once she posts bail and comes back to the house, you will have to leave for your own safety. Comment 3. Make sure your mom has no access to any of your bank accounts and freeze your credit so she can't take out credit cards, etc. in your name. Thank you for watching the video. If you are interested in listening to these kinds of stories, we've got more in store for you.